So you have your New Year's resolutions and you set all of your goals, but now what? I'm going to talk about measuring goals and why it's so important. So every year we as a society generally set our goals, right? Our New Year's resolutions. And then most of the time we kind of work on them for the first month or so, and then they're just like non-existent, right? We just don't even think about them anymore. And when we don't think about them, when we aren't like going and striving toward them anymore, generally we don't achieve them, right? So we're going to talk about measuring our goals and why that's so important. And just to clarify, measuring goals, what does that mean? So a very easy example is okay, I want to make $50,000 of revenue this year in my new business. Okay. So instead of setting that goal in January and then only looking at it in December, did I achieve it or not? By measuring our goals, so month to month, week to week, however that looks like for you and your business, you can start seeing, okay, how closer am I to that goal? Am I setting like action? Am I doing action oriented things that's getting me closer to achieving that goal, right? So by measuring it, it's essentially us having a ticker of saying, okay, I made $1,000 today. Okay, made $5,000 last month. And then so adding all of that up, and by June you're like, okay, I made, $32,000, right? Then you know how far away or not you are to that goal, right? So big picture, that's essentially what measuring a goal is us just putting up where we're at, where we want to go, and seeing that gap, right? And essentially trying to close that gap to achieve that goal. So reason number one why measuring your goals is super important: assessment of progress. You are able to see where you are and where you're going and if you're on track or not, right? So if you're heading toward the right direction, or hey, I'm heading off direction a little bit, I need to recalibrate and get right back on track. Reason number two for measuring your goals is accountability. When we have clearly defined goals, it becomes easier to identify maybe who's responsible for it, but also when. So if you're a solopreneur like myself, I don't have a team. So the who, it's always on me, right? But when we are starting to measure our goals, having this accountability, it really sets for when do things need to be achieved. So if you have a revenue goal, I just use that as an easy example. You have a revenue goal, then I know that I'm responsible for achieving that goal, one, but then two, I know, okay, ideally, or even just balance, with numbers, okay, that means I need to make however many thousands of dollars each month to get me to that revenue goal. I hope this makes sense. The cool thing with accountability, it really fosters responsibility and ownership. And I know this sounds like who would want that? But it's actually a really cool thing. And I think as entrepreneurs, especially solo entrepreneurs, this is something that we actually really like. We really strive. And this is maybe why we got into owning a business, having our business, is because we like when everything's on us. We can take ownership and control of that situation. So accountability definitely is helpful when it comes to measuring your goals. Number three, measuring your goals is very helpful with motivation and focus. So when we are measuring our goals, we know what that gap is, right? We also know how our efforts are impacting our relationship with that goal. Are we getting closer? Are we getting further away? Or are we just stagnant? Have we plateaued our efforts in that? And by having that knowing, that measurement, that gap, whichever you want to call it, we're then better able to essentially focus on where we need to go, right? Because if you're like, oh, I need to make 50,000 by the end of the year, it's like, how do I do that, right? But when we step back and we start measuring things, it's like, okay, how can I get just that next $1,000 or whatever that is, right? For your business, for whatever your goals is. But how can I get to that next step? By measuring things, we really break things down and we start really seeing, okay, if I can just focus on that next thing, the rest is guaranteed, right? And I think at the end of the day too, when you're measuring things, I don't know if you guys are like me in this capacity, but anytime you check off something on the list, anytime you're like, oh, I just got from, 10% to 25% closer to that goal, I feel motivated. It like gets me excited. It makes me want to keep driving, keep working toward that goal. Reason number 4 why measuring your goals is super important. Resource allocation. I never really thought about this until I really dove deep into planning out this YouTube, is resource allocation. We actually, by measuring our goals, seeing where we are against that goal, we're better able to understand, where is my time best spent? If I am X amount, if I'm using percentages, if I'm only 10% close, 10% close to completing that goal, and I only have, a few months left to do that. Okay, resource allocation. I now know I need to put some more effort and some time into that goal. So this is helpful, obviously, when identifying where your attention needs to be, but also prioritizing your time too. Something that I love about measuring our goals is number 5, which is learning and improvement. So we, in the beginning of the year, assume, okay, this is exactly how it's going to look like. These are the step-by-steps of how I'm going to achieve this thing, right? And then as months progress, as we start taking action to get us closer to the goals, we find ourselves, things aren't working out like we anticipated them to, right? So this is not a time for you to stop and say, oh, this goal's not for me because it's not doing what I thought it was going to do. Rather, this is in time to learn, to have this self-improvement, to really refocus, regroup, and say, okay, how can I get the result I'm looking for, but maybe go about it in a different way? This is something that's really cool about measuring goals, is it allows us to look for solutions. So just like learning and improvement, measuring goals is also very helpful when it comes to making effective decisions, okay? So like learning and improvement, effective decision making gives you essentially these data points, right? We are able to see if we're on track or not, but it also allows us to see trends. It allows us to see patterns, right? Of, is this action getting us closer to where we need to go? How am I doing in relationship to achieving that? So when you have this analysis of getting us closer to that goal, we're able to see and make decisions a lot more clearly. 7, communication and alignment. When you know where you're going, you're better able to communicate that to those maybe that are on your team, but most importantly, and I know this sounds a little woo-woo, to yourself. Right? So anytime, like I said earlier, when you come up to an obstacle, to confrontation, to an uncomfortable feeling, we are better able to communicate to ourselves that this is simply just an obstacle to get us closer to that goal. When all of ourselves inside of us, right, are on track, are on the same page of this is where we're heading, then getting to that is so much more seamless. Everything's in alignment. You're not questioning yourself. You're not like fighting against yourself. And I guess I want to say, to clarify that too, there will be times where you'll fight against yourself. There will be times where you're like, I fucking don't want to do this. Please, I just need a break, right? There will be times of that. But you personally will know, okay, am I just being lazy or do I actually need a break? Right? And in that moment, you're able to push through to get toward that other goal, right? Stop listening to your own bullshit. Or you actually do take that rest, right? But at the end of the day, measuring goals is essentially promoting this alignment. It's getting you, all of yous, in like this assisted coordination of action. Like you're all just striving toward that next step. Everything you're doing, you know the reason why, you know that intention, right? All right, guys, last one, number 8. This is my favorite one. Celebration of achievement. So when you measure your goals, you are able to see your progress, right? Well, in each moment, celebrate. Because at the end of the day, in order for you to get where you want to go, you have to do something different than what you've always done. And in that difference from, I've never woken up to, before work to go to a workout, but you started doing that even just 2 times a week, right? I'm just making up an example. Celebrate that. Because at the end of the day, our brains are wired to avoid change, to avoid any sort of resistance, to stay comfortable. So when we go against that wiring, it's not bad to do that. It just has to retrain our brain. And that alone, my friends, is something to celebrate, I promise you. The more you start taking action in your aligned version of yourself, the more you're able to do it flawlessly, or I should say, without as much resistance. All right, guys, these are my 8 tips as to why you should be measuring your goals. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know in the comments below which one you felt resonated most towards you. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. My goal here is to be posting 1 video a week for you guys. So let me know what videos you guys want to learn more about, what you want to dive deeper into. I am all here for it. So I hope you guys have a fabulous day and we'll catch you later. See you next week.